If you're thinking about getting into model railroading or you're already an addict, boy, do we have a project for you. In this episode, we take rough shapes and we turn them into rugged mountains, the regular guy way, starting right now. Welcome to It's My Railroad, the how-to show for regular people. On this show, we chronicle the never-ending adventures of the regular guy, model railroader, and it features me. We have a lot of fun on this channel, having a great time interacting with the community. We are learning a ton. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. All right, rail fans, before we get into this, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you watched our last episode all the way to the end, then you'll see I announced that we had to pretty much tear out all of that beautiful custom laid track up in the logging camp. There were some reasons why we had to do that, and I was going to cover them today in this episode. But there's so much to do to get the mountains ready for paint and other treatments that I just kind of wanted to get right to it. So I made a sidetracked episode specifically related to ripping out and replacing that track. If you saw Sidetrack last week, you know what I'm talking about. If you missed it, just click the card above my head or the link in the description below. It's going to take you right there and you can get all caught up with the drama that is the track of the logging camp. So here's what we're doing today. We are going to take that styrofoam we put in last week. We're going to hack it up a little bit, get some great shape going to it, and then we're going to put some Sculptamold on it and feather that out into a set of mountains I think you're really gonna love. Now, if you're new to the Sculptamold world, we did an episode a little while ago. We got a little bit of a deeper dive into Sculptamold, and there's a card above my head, link in the description. Click on those and it'll take you right over to what we talked about in that video. If you need to stock up on your Sculptamold, there's a link in the description below. Just click it, boom, you own it. And that's how we roll here at It's My Railroad. But enough of all that. I really want to get into making these mountains happen. So what are we waiting for? Let's go into the hobby room right now. All right, let's get to cutting, shall we? To do this, the regular guy does it like this. We have three tools. One, I have my drywall saw. It hogs through styrofoam like a hot knife through butter. Lots of fun. Leaves a really jagged edge. Exactly what we want. Second of all, we have the old hobby saw. Make some finer cuts for like notches and fissures and stuff like that. I enjoy using this when I'm carving up styrofoam. And then lastly, we have the trusty X-Acto knife, because you never know. Okay, anyway. So without further ado, let us jump right into hacking away at this. We'll start over here where the log loader goes. I just want to remind us all of something. We want that log loading platform to be like right about here. And it goes back like 10 feet. So we kind of need to make sure that right in here, we go back far enough with our cut to bring the hillside up from that. The hillside will come right down into the top of the log loader. At least that's what I'm envisioning. We'll see how that goes. But this is all kind of the basic shape we want. I'm just going to go through and just start carving stuff up and see how it goes. I don't have a specific plan in mind. I just know that I need to cut this stuff into oblivion. So just watch me do it, and here we go. So at the top there, I'm kind of rounding that off a little bit, flattening it out. So that's kind of like the crest, almost the crest of a little hillside. Whether it works good or not, I don't know. I had this problem here where the actual backdrop's going to be eventually, and that doesn't work so good. So it's almost like we can flip this over and glue it back on before we sculpt the mold and call it a day. We can fill that in perhaps. As someone once suggested, why'd I use thin foam? Right there, shouldn't use the thin foam, but I did. So Bob's your uncle. Let's just keep going. Down here, we know that we want to kind of round this edge off as it takes off down towards the track. At least I know that anyway. And so we're going to just start hacking away at this to try to make that happen a little bit. Now we can fill all this in with the old Sculptamold later. If we get a nice gentle sort of transition there. Something along those lines. Now, I don't know if you can see this really well, but see how this is already starting to form some kind of fishery kind of look? Really digging it. This is what we want out of this sucker when we're done. So, keep hacking away. We'll cut some more fissures intentionally like this, and then even where this just broke away from here, don't care, we are going to be Sculptamolding all that back down, or we can glue it back down again if we want, I don't know. But see the fissuring happening here? This is kind of the look that I'm after anyway, and I fine-tune it with the Sculptamold once we get there. Okay, up here making it a little flatter up in this area here, up by the tunnel portal, because we figured that's where they chipped away all the rock and whatnot to make the tunnel portal possible. Now here's the thing, right back in here, this is where the horsies and the logs enter and exit this little seam. So I'm trying to get that cut up to the point. It actually needs to come back here where the log loader is, so we have a gully back over here, and I wanted to try to get another one that kind of comes in through here and drops off like that. So I am just going to give that a shot, but that is taking too big a bite. Let's get the little guy out. Let's see if we can't just put a quick little gully that goes next to this sort of dirt road that the horses and the logs sort of move down when they're coming up from the forest. Okay, note to self, I think if we're going to do something this massive next time, we will try to use more of a big single piece of styrofoam, because this glue is really causing a problem. And I've never had that problem before, to be honest with you. Got this. What do I want to do here? What do we want to do? Let's have a vote. Okay. Okay, I like that. I think what I want to do, get a bunch of dirt and trees up in here. I think it might look nice, but I'm thinking of having some kind of a rock feature, and maybe right here is where we can do that. Kind of curves around a little bit. Back out like that. Again, I gotta fix that hole. I hadn't counted on that, but whatever. Now I know, it's gonna be hard to see because it's all white and there's a big mess, but what I'm doing is I just carved a little sort of a groove in that. There's kind of one already forming here that when we get the Sculptamold on there, we'll start factoring it into sort of a hillside kind of thing. Well, as always with this white foam, man, I have a mess. It looks like it snowed but chunks of snow the size of a Buick in N scale. So I'm gonna go clean this up so we can kind of see how it looks. Hit it with a little sanding, I think, and see if it's kind of what we want. And then we're going to go ahead and patch up some holes and Sculptamold it. Well, looks like I got that area kind of cleaned up. It was a little hard to see some of the work that had been done with all that snow everywhere on the layout. You'll see, again, the people that use the purple foam board don't have this kind of a mess. But this is what I had, this is what I used, and I'm paying the price. So anyway, there you go. But anyway, you saw how easy it was to sort of just cut that up and manipulate it and make some scores in it to kind of get some striations. And what's going to end up being the rock or the rock face or whatever. So let's get the close-up cam though and take a closer look at some of the features. Then let's mix up that Sculptamold and get on it. Okay, just sort of working left to right. You can see down here how we scored out these striations right here that when we put the Sculptamold on, we'll sort of run our fingers up and down and through there to make those look like striations in the rock face. And then of course we can take and sand and chisel a little bit to really make that look like what we want it to look like. Moving over here, back here where the gully, quote unquote, is, that was a little harder because unfortunately had a lot of glue back there. Trying to cut that out, not so easy. But anyway, that's the beginning of this gully that I'm kind of figuring will sort of drop off. We'll have maybe some dirt or something blending in with the rock down here. I don't know, we'll see how that goes. Back here I left this relatively flat because hopefully once we put our log loader in here, then there'll be a road or whatever, a path that takes it out into the forest right there. We'll see how that boils down. Here's some cool things. You can sort of see these striations here just naturally in there from the Styrofoam. What this is going to do, it's going to allow me to then Sculptamold through that and then start shaping it right through there. We'll already have this working in our advantage. You can see it kind of just carries right on over into where the logging camp proper is going to be. You see we've got these striations kind of back there. Don't know if that's going to be so much rock as it is going to be dirt with trees on it, but at least it's a start. And as we pan back here, you see we went ahead and we just cut all this up, kind of made it, kind of boogered it up right here so it's kind of an uneven surface that we'll accentuate some more with the Sculptamold. So speaking of Sculptamold, I think it's time we just get on it. All right, well there you go. How about doing some Sculptamolding? Sounds good to me. I'm going to do it. I've got my hobby bowl. I've got what's left of that last bag of Sculptamold, plus I have a whole brand new bag right there I got from Arnie's Model Trains last week. We're gonna mix that up. We're gonna start going. I think we'll start in the back over on the left just because we're gonna start in the back on the left. I don't know. Doing the stuff in the back first and then doing the stuff in front of that and in front of that I think makes more sense, so we're not reaching over a bunch of wet Sculptamold and whatever. It's not like it doesn't wash off or anything, but why make a mess? The Styrofoam has already done that enough for one project. So let's just change the camera angles a little bit and let's get on Sculptamolding this thing. So we got it all mixed up and here we go. Get a little going in my gully back here. Just start piecing this in. Need some more water. It's kind of sticking to me right now. See, I put that blue tape down. I forgot to point that out. I put that blue tape down on top of my rails because Sculptamold tends to go everywhere, at least when I'm Sculptamolding. And what that'll mean is my rails will have Sculptamold on them. It takes forever to clean it off. And oftentimes it just doesn't ever get cleaned off. So trying to just blend in the Sculptamold with my bare hands back in here on this summit. And it's still pretty dry. Adding a little bit more water to my bowl and bringing our Sculptamold back up. Now, this time I mean it, guys, all right? Last time I did the Sculptamold, it was like, hey, we're done. And then I came back and we're doing it again because I wasn't happy with the way the hillsides were turning out. And So now, like I said, this time we mean it. Still need a little bit of water, it seems. All right. There we go. That looks like cottage cheese. So I'm just going through and filling up all these holes and crevices for now. Once this stuff starts setting up, I will take my fingers in there and start forming more details. Ultimately, we'll finish those details though when we get to, once it dries and we start carving some stuff out here and there. So for now, we just get the Sculptamold on there, like this. Wow, it's already starting to look like a mountain range. Well, an N-scale version anyway. And we get all the styrofoam covered. If I miss some of the styrofoam here and there, I don't know that I'm that concerned about it, because I'm going to be putting dirt on there and whatnot. But, you know, prudence demands we at least try to cover the whole thing. And just keep working my way across the hillside here. I don't know how well you can see this, but this has kind of got this little bulge forming here that I kind of like. It's almost like we can turn that into a piece of granite with dirt around it and some of the rock faces sticking through. That's kind of cool. The guys that are really experts at this, they go through, they have a plan, man. They have a plan, they have a picture, and they go, done, here's what it's going to look like. I go through with a dream. My style is just to keep working it until it's where you want it to be. I'm probably just right now going to use up all the Sculptamold I have on this first hillside here, because as it starts setting up, we need to start doing some more terraforming on it. Well, that looks different than it did a couple minutes ago, doesn't it? And as it starts setting up, it starts getting a little slimy. I can start moving it around with my hands, smoothing it out. And again, just trying to kind of get a look that we want. By the way, you know, soldering is my least favorite thing to do. Scenery is my favorite. It's just you can spend one afternoon or one evening and completely change the look of your layout. It can go from just a piece of wood to a farm, or to a, you know, a whatever, a field or something. It's pretty cool. So what you see me doing is kind of what I do. I just keep getting my hand wet and gently rubbing over it to try to smooth it out, because that's ultimately the look I think I'm after. And this is, you know, this isn't unique to me. I've seen this done all kinds of times. This is not me inventing this, although my creative eye is my creative eye. Yeah, anyway. Here we can just take a look real quick at kind of some of the stuff I was doing. You see up here how we were using, I was using my fingers kind of to smooth all that and to push all of that in. Looking at it from the side, you can sort of see some of the striations, and there needs to be smoothed out a little bit more, I think. Kind of like that. So that's kind of a smooth thing. This may turn into some kind of a rock outcropping, whereas we're going to have like dirt and trees sticking up. It's going to look an awful lot like that photo right there is kind of what we're after. But then down here in the bottom where I used up some of that extra stuff I had, see how it's a little rougher? I did that on purpose. This is definitely going to be some kind of a rocky thing, so I'm leaving it a little rough, still putting my sort of striation marks in there. And then all the places that I have sort of these deep recesses, like through here, there's a technique I have with painting where we're going to be able to sort of make that look even more sort of deep, kind of set it apart from the rest of the layout. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go through and then finish putting the Sculptamold here, down here, over here, down here. So let's go. All right, there we go. We have the Sculptamold installed. What we're gonna do now is kind of let it dry. I've smoothed it out quite a bit with my wet hands. We're gonna let it dry. Then I'm gonna do a little sanding, a little sculpting, and then we're gonna paint it. We'll probably be able to get all of that done in our next episode. So for now, let's let this dry up and head back into the studio. And we're back in the studio. Ha! That's how the regular guy makes mountains, baby. We carve up some styrofoam, we cover it in some Sculptamold, boom, awesome mountains. Next week, we're gonna paint all that up. It's gonna look even more mountainous than it does now. I think you're really gonna like the way it looks. Make sure you come back. If you've missed any of the It's My Railroad videos, just click this link here. It'll take you all the way to the beginning. You can watch them all the way up. And then if you've missed any sidetracked episodes, go ahead and click this link. It'll take you right to a playlist that's gonna show you some sidetrack. So I guess that'll wrap it up for today. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. And until next time, rail on, my friends.